God has given us our families really for his glory. We think those little image bears bear our image. Well, they might have your nose, your eyes, your temperament or whatever, right? But they are image bearers like we are, God given to fill the world with his glory. And so as our families display that even greater than any of us do individually, we're part of the body of Christ. We do become these little kingdom outposts where people get to see and taste and experience
I
the
think
kingdom.
that what you just said is really important because none of us on our own is that perfect image of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's together in community that we really display the body of Christ most perfectly, most completely, I think is a better word.
Yeah.
So as a family, we actually get to do that on our own. As that family grows, we actually even become more like Christ, is that as we extend the family out, as we include others in, we really
Absolutely.
become more like Christ.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Everyday Disciple podcast, where you'll learn how to live with greater intentionality and an integrated faith that naturally fits into every area of life. In other words, discipleship as a lifestyle. This is the stuff your parents, pastors, and seminary professors probably forgot to tell you. And now, here's your host, Caesar Kalinowski.
Welcome indeed. Welcome back. Glad you're with me. Wouldn't want to do this without you. I hope that you're having a good week. Before I get too far into this and forget, I want to invite you to join us over in our special, awesome Facebook group for the Everyday Disciple podcast, right? If you're not in there, then you're kind of missing out on a bunch of the party, because that's where we do a lot of our live training and just have good conversation, and you can ask questions about the show and talk to each other about it, or just anything going on in your life when it comes to discipleship and mission. You can go over to that group and just search it in Facebook, Everyday Disciple Podcast, or hey, to make it simple, you can just go to everydaydisciple.com/Facebook. How about that? Right? Awesome. I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll join us over there. And I'd love to hear from you. That's your best way of kind of getting into a dialogue with me and others in our whole world as well. Okay? Now, today, we're going to be getting into part 2 of this family on mission talk that I did with Tina. That was part of a bonus training we did online live. That's why it sounds a little bit different. But I hope you listened to the last episode that we put out just a couple days ago. It was part 1 of this living as a family on mission. And in that, we began to tell you kind of a little bit more of our story and how we were living, and then learning to live, and how Team K was born, and how this moniker of Team K became sort of how we referred to us, our family, at our best, but also pulled our kids together, pulled us together on mission. And it's also how people began to refer to us, and people really wanted to become a part of Team K, and still do. I can remember when Tina and I were living in New York for a while, making disciples and doing some training just a few years back. There was a woman who lived across the street from us, this actress, and she was becoming part of our oikos and community there. And we were outside talking to her with another neighbor who had just come over just once. And we said something to the one lady, the first lady, and we said, well, hey, now that you're part of Team K, we expect you to be over here a whole lot more. And the other lady was like, I want to be a part of Team K. And we said, well, you get to be. And what she was saying is, hey, I loved this and I loved being with you and I want to be a part of this. So I hope you're enjoying this story. We're going to continue on today, and I'm going to give you part 2 of the training. And we're going to talk a little bit about what God had to change in our hearts and some of the things that you might need to consider sort of laying at the altar, or setting down or giving back to God in your life, some rhythms, patterns, fears, preferences, things like that he might need to change for you to truly live as, sort of an open family and a family on mission that includes lots and lots of people in your family as the rings of your lifestyle and family life move outward to include more and more others. I think you're going to really enjoy this. So give it a listen, and I'll be back at the end to give you a few more thoughts. All right, here we go.
So many people ask about, how do I do this with my family? And really, even if you're leading a church, like we said, becoming a family on mission, it's the starting point. You're never going to lead anybody further or faster or deeper into the gospel and into discipleship than you're leading your own family, your first mission field.
Yeah, your family really is your first mission field. And it is truly a kingdom outpost. It's that safe place you can bring others to experience what the kingdom is like. So, I hope you're inviting others into that. I hope that you're enjoying your family being the kingdom and the grace and the gospel and the good
Yeah,
news that comes with
displaying
that.
all that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's kind of how we started yesterday, right? We talked a little bit about why this is so important. And God has given us our families really for his glory. We think those little image bearers bear our image. Well, they might have your nose, your eyes, your temperament, or whatever, right? But they are image bearers like we are of God, given to fill the world with his glory. And so
Mhm.
as our families display that even greater than any of us do individually, we're part of the body of Christ, right? We do become these little kingdom outposts where people get to see and taste and experience
I
the
think
kingdom.
that what you just said is really important because none of us on our own is that perfect image of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's together in community that we really display the body of Christ most perfectly, most completely, I think is a better word.
Yeah.
And as a family, we actually get to do that like on our own. And as that family grows, we actually even become more like Christ. Is that as we extend the family out, as we include others in, we really become
Absolutely.
more like Christ. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, before we dive deep into part two, and I hope we kind of like we were a little tricky yesterday. We told you we're going to tell you the end of the Team K story. Right? And it's good. Oh man. It's beautifully good. We're also going to talk to you about how our family, after God formed us and we started realizing we were Team K and people started paying attention and wanting to be a part of Team K
Mhm.
and join the party and get to the meals and come and work with us and hang with us and vacation with us and all. But we realized some stuff about our own heart and things that God was calling us to kind of lay down and die to, right? And we're going to talk a lot about that today. All right, let's get going. So we talked about our family, like why we became Team K and like a way to pull our kids together and how it became sort of the moniker, that we used and people started to refer to us at our best. And they wanted to be a part of Team K. Still now, I mean, daily, it's part of the deal. It's just part of the deal. We're Team K. People refer to us as that. And if people are coming over, they're like, hey, Team K, doing family dinner tonight? We're coming. You know what I mean? Right. And and that has been a beautiful thing. It has been a beautiful thing. But you know what? At first, even as we started to realize this and open up our home, and kind of along the way, and even still, we had to kind of like set a few things down. We had to like let God reshape some of our fear and preference, and right, And so, one of those first things was like our meal times, like who was there, how often, what we served, what it cost, right?
Yeah, yeah. Meal times, even just the fact of having a regular mealtime that was kind of a predictable pattern that we can invite people into, that they knew when it was
Yeah.
happening and that they knew that our door was open, that, which then, of course leads to like, well, what are we eating and what's our food budget look like?
Yeah.
It really led to some very creative gospel moments
And would we be willing to intentionally start having one of those meals a week where we're going to have others in?
yeah.
Now, eventually that changed and it became a lot of meals a week. And we can even talk to you about like a time when our kids sort of pushed on that a little bit, right?
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
fair. But can we start to have our own family meals with some grace and predictability? And then can we maybe pick a night of the week that we're going to say, hey, we're going to start opening that up to others? And that becomes a little taste into our family life. Now, we want to have a beautiful, wonderful, grace-filled family dinner night ourselves before we fight people into a mess and the kids don't like want to be there and where all we do is fight and correct and discipline and all that, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one. Cooking skills. Some people flip out
Yeah.
like, I don't really
I
cook.
don't know how to cook. I don't know what to do. Let me just tell you, I grew up, my mom was the worst cook ever. In fact, I joke that I learned how to cook in self-defense because my mom was so bad at it. But the thing that there were five of us kids and we all had to be home for family dinner, but we could bring anybody we wanted home. And my mom would take whatever she had and she would make it work for however many people showed up. My mom had the gift of hospitality so good, even though she didn't have the gift of cooking. And here's the thing, nobody really cared what the food tasted like. What they cared about is that they were invited and included into the
People
table.
want a place at the table.
Mhm.
That's what they care about. And I know, see, here's the thing. Okay. A little gospeling of our hearts here. When we are more concerned about what people think about our cooking or the size of our home or the fact that, guess what, there's a basket of laundry over there or whatever. What we are is we have fear of man.
Mhm.
We think that their opinion of us is higher than God's, and we already have his approval. He's more glorious, right? And all that stuff is connected. In fact, all this stuff we're going to talk today, a lot of it's connected to fear of man or love of self.
Mhm.
We actually love me and my preference and what people think of me more than we love God and his mission and making disciples and the fact that Jesus gave us this life and we want to extend it, we get to extend it. That's a big thing connected to that. Now we could go many, many weeks, months, and years on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another thing. Okay. Our personal time,
Mm.
like we start going, I'm just too busy for this. Well, no, you're not. Go back and think about the training, watch the training on the 6 discipleship rhythms. All of life is already perfectly open for discipleship. We already
Yeah.
live in these rhythms.
And I think this whole idea of personal time, it's like my time, my house,
My
kids,
calendar, my
family,
preference, my priority.
mine. I feel like it's like, Finding Nemo, the seagulls.
Right,
That's
right,
all
right.
they know how to say is mine,
Right.
mine.
Yeah.
So that we have to give up a lot of mine and realize it's really all God's, all
And,
of it.
and
Our
some of us
family,
lead
our
our
house, our time.
and some of us lead our family like that. Like we're like 7 years old or something. No, mine or 4. You know what I mean? And there again, some of that's out of fear. That's how we can control what others think of us is we don't let them in a lot, right? But our personal time, starting to live open. Like we pretty much live and have lived for decades, our whole life, really. Our marriage, even before we knew a lot of this stuff, we've lived open door policy. We just have.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that flips you out. But here's the thing about living with an open door. They're saying we're going to treat everyone like part of Team K.
Like family.
Right? We're going to treat them like family. Here's the thing about that. Once that's settled in our heart, because that's how God sees us, that's how God treats us, we're going to go ahead and treat others that way. Then we quit worrying about like our schedule as much and who's in and who's out. And like we figure like if we're eating anyway, you can come on by. If we're laying around watching, something on Netflix, probably you can come by. But here's the other thing. We also have the freedom when it's not a good time or we're needing some, couple time or whatever to say, yeah, no, it's not a great time. Like I've used this sort of analogy and it's a true story actually, but like, if we're laying around, Tina and I having a little bit of wine or something, watching a romantic comedy or who knows what, and someone ding dong knocks on, rings the doorbell, knocks on the door, like, hey, what's up, brother? And it was like, well, what are you guys doing? I thought I'd stop by. We're like, well, we're watching a romantic comedy and having some wine, kind of, hoping for a happy ending, if you know what I'm saying, right? And they're like, oh, I'm like, well, if it's an emergency, we'll turn that off. Come on in. But if it's not, how about we catch breakfast tomorrow? See, and so people freak out. I'm like, I couldn't live open door. Like, oh, it's going to be house full crazy. No, it's not. It's not.
Mm.
And you also in the gospel, you have freedom to go, hey, you know what? Now it's not a super time. How about then? Right? How about later or something? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's another one you might have to like die to, right? Or give back to God is where you live.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've, isolated yourself on, 80 acres in the middle of nowhere. So that,
Or even
you know,
just, in a community that's like so gated up and no one gets in and, none
nothing
of your,
says welcome to the kingdom like a gate
yeah,
with a security guard.
like your church buildings often have. Like it says welcome, like gates and lots. Anyway,
Yeah.
right? We have very commonly people will say to us, we're listening to this, we want to live this way, but boy, our closest neighbors, like, a quarter mile down the road or, or more or whatever, right? And I'm like, well, okay, why, why don't you live where there's people? Oh, you should see our house. We've always dreamed of having land, Well, that's beautiful. But if it's keeping you from making, and actually, by the way, I don't think that does keep you from making
No.
disciples. We have too many friends who are knocking out of the park, baptizing people regularly, and they live on farms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and they're spread out. But if you're finding it hard to build relationships of proximity and life on life and have people around because you live isolated or the house you've chosen is so keeping you so busy working that you got to work like ridiculous hours to keep that thing paid for. Well, maybe that there again, you need to figure out, maybe I need a different house.
Yeah.
Maybe, Lord, we're going to like lay that perfect house that impresses everybody in our dream house down, move to a neighborhood where there's people, one we can live within our means, right? We're going to trust you for that. So we don't have to work as much, or we can take a job closer to home. Just last night with a couple we're coaching, who they're just precious and they're making disciples. They have a beautiful community going. Their family life is open. The husband turned in his notice in a school district that he worked in, but it was a county away. because he goes, all that time and distance is eating up our time here in the neighborhood. And he's a teacher and a coach. I want to be doing that right here in the schools where our friends and neighbors are all a part of, and our kids are too. And so in faith, without a new job, in faith that God's going to sort that out. They're changing jobs. That's another thing you might have to go, hey, like when we lived in Manhattan, with people that like had these amazing jobs, like, wow, did they make the money and prestige, right? And fun. But they worked like 70 hours.
Or more.
Yeah. But little by little, as the gospel took root, they started making some choices different. I'm going to work less. I'm going to make a little less. Maybe I won't get to live on the 31st floor here. Maybe I'll have to like move into a normal $5,000, $7,000 apartment in New York, instead of the 10,000 one, whatever. See, as if we love people and we love God in his glory, and we want to see them find spiritual freedom and spiritual peace, we might need to. Now, that's highfalutin, right? Most of us aren't faced with that in New York. Some of you watching this might be, but some of us just might need to look at our job and where we live and the house that it provides and go, hey, are we able to make disciples here? Like, or do we need to maybe we do, but we need a little kitchen upgrade, or we need to, or something, or we need to not worry about it. And listen, we have done missional communities and made disciples out of little dinky apartments. I'm not joking.
Like studio or one bedroom.
Yeah.
So
our very first missional community, we kind of latched onto, some people of peace. And this one couple who were just like magnets, right? Drew all kinds of young people to us, and they were our friends' and became our friends' and became our friends.
And are still our friends.
Even though we lived like 3 or 4 blocks away and had a much larger house, they were sort of the center of gravity. Their apartment was like 300-400 square foot. And we were always in there, like all the time in there, eating, doing the story of God, hanging out, throwing birthday parties, like movie nights, music nights.
Yeah.
17, 18, 20 of us, 300-400 square foot. I'm not joking. It was just no one
People
cared.
everywhere.
No one
They didn't
cared.
even have a full set. They had a cocktail table, like a high top cocktail table in the kitchen. That was it. It just was kind of enough room to stick the food. And we all just crammed in and nobody
Yeah.
cared because everybody was welcome.
Yeah. Now, for some of us, some of this has to do with like, well, where we live, it's even hard to let my kids go out and play with a lot of the neighbors
Right.
because they're not very obedient, or I don't know the parents, so I don't trust them. That might be one of the things you have to sort of lay down and trust God. Remember, there is kids who he's allowing us to steward.
Here's the crazy thing about our kids is that God actually loves our kids and cares about our kids and can actually do a better job caring for our kids than we can any day of the week. And so we have to allow God, to be able to, we need to let God direct our parenting in this. We need to let God allow our kids through certain situations that we can gospel their hearts in. If we're trying to protect our kids from the world, they will never learn actually how to exist in the world. Or we're not loving our kids by doing that.
Guess what? Your kids' hearts are just as sinful as everybody else's kids' hearts. But some of those kids, maybe they've not experienced the love and parenting that your kids are getting.
Yeah.
So isn't that a beautiful thing? Like, I wish we had the time to tell you the amount of stories of how kids who were kind of like the bully neighborhood kids who we just helped our kids extra befriend and extra bless and extra invite to stuff. That's what they died. That's what they were dying for, and how they became part of Team K over time, and how it softened their hearts, right? And it taught our kids these valuable lessons of people who we don't necessarily initially get along with or are our favorite or whatever. God still loves them.
Yeah.
And God still put us in their life and them in our life. And you might need to lay that down, like trust God for that, right?
It really helped our kids learn to look for the thing behind the thing, that is so important
Right?
in everyday life. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Right. So now here's another thing you might have to lay down. How many activities your kids are involved in?
yeah.
Some of us and our kids, they sign up for multiple sports a year. So every season there's a sport. And oh my God, and there's traveling team. Oh, they need private lessons. Oh, and they're in band, and they're, and we might need to lay that down.
Activities are great, but not when activities make the rules.
And so now we have no space for people. We've made ourselves so busy at the altar of sports fame or something, that we have no room to make disciples.
Yeah.
And so like we've had to have these conversations with people. It's like, okay, your whole life's been consumed with soccer for 2 of your kids for like the last 10 years we've known you. Every soccer camp, every summer camp, every traveling league, everything. Now, let's just say your kid is Pele or Beckham, or you know what I mean? Like, right? I'm older and I don't really watch soccer, but let's just say they become the best person in the world. Is that going to save their soul? Is that going to disciple their hearts? Is that going to help them make disciples? No. In fact, it wrecks a lot of people when it comes to spiritual things. And here's the thing: probably your kid's not going to be Beckham or whoever, right?
Yeah.
Here's what we suggest, and what we did with our kids. We said, hey, we want you to experience all these things. You get to pick a sport this year, right? Connected to school or our public, whatever, or band. And if they overlap, we got to figure out which one you want. Because first of all, we don't want to live as taxis. We only have 3 kids, but that's still a lot of taxi work, right? And we wanted to know that we also had the space and time to have those friends and families around versus, we're to the next thing, here to the next thing. And so I think kids being in sports is an amazing opportunity to build relationships. So I'm not anti any of it.
Yeah.
But when you live just thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, some of you are going, I know, I'm totally getting it. If I had time, check the comments coming in. I bet it is. You need to start to say, hey, let's lay that down. And let me talk turkey to you here. Here's Uncle Caesar, okay, Uncle Frank, speaking truth to you. Some of you do that because you are vicariously living through it, or because when your kids do well, you feel like you're the super parent, or you would never want to say no because your kid's glory, your glory comes from you being the super parent, or you see what I'm saying, or something. I want to challenge you. If your extracurricular activities for your kids is why you could never make disciples or live like a family in mission, you're missing so much opportunity.
Not only are you missing, but you have to realize that you're setting your kids up for a lot of disappointment and failure because you're teaching them that the world revolves around them. You're in effect, even if you're not saying it, that's what you're implying to your children, is that the world revolves around them and what they do, and they're the most important thing. And yes, they are very important thing. They're very important, but that is such a disservice to them, and it's not loving them well.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And so, listen, I think sports and band and extracurricular activities like that, choir, all that, I think they're awesome. And I think they're meaningful. And I think they're amazing opportunities to build relationship for our kids, for us, with the parents involved. Amen. And yes. But you hear what we're saying. Okay. So that's one thing. How about this? Who you do holidays with and where every year, right?
It's a tough one.
Yeah. Like for us, for instance, 4th of July is a huge deal in our neighborhood. Okay. It's like the funnest, and everybody pulls out all the stops, and believe me, all the fireworks. Our fireworks in this neighborhood rival
some of the best we've ever seen.
Yeah. Like more than maybe what the city's doing. And we live on the waterfront. I mean, not our house, but our city, 5 minutes away is water. Right. And it's amazing because everybody pitches in, and there's some guys who are really good at it. And we have 3 firemen that live on within a block of us. And it's amazing. And parties and tents and whoa, it's crazy. So guess what? We try not to travel on 4th of July because we want to be with our people of peace. We want to be with our friends, with our community that's here. Some folks, are missing that opportunity for having people over for Christmas. No, every year we always go to my grandma's. Every year, maybe every other year. How about, or every Thanksgiving, or that's big for us too. We try not to travel for those times. And so how about this for a suggestion? Well, for one, pray about it, right? And say, hey, those are our family, but these are our family too. And guess what? There's people out there that don't have any family. What if, say, this is your tradition and you travel a lot on those bigger holidays? What if you go, hey, one year we will, one year we won't, or one year we travel on Christmas, but we stay home for Thanksgiving? We flip it that year. We go see our family for Thanksgiving, but then we're here for Christmas to have people around.
Yeah.
See, these are some of the things you might have to loosen up. Well, my mom would flip. Well, listen, our parents used to too, and not so much my parents, but some of my sisters. And I can remember even some of my sisters being angry with me because I'd be in Sudan trying to feed starving people and bring the gospel there. Or we were hosting, a birthday party for a bunch of kids who were homeless, but not, we're helping them out. We got them in an apartment where we were like, oh yeah, but you didn't make my son's 11th birthday and bring him that $15, $20 gift. You know what I mean? They couldn't understand. We said, well, we're doing the best we can.
Or holidays, which, that used to break my heart because I think, so many people don't have family at the holidays. And it's such a ripe opportunity to reach out and bless people and help them to feel part of the family. And so having holidays where we weren't able to bring people and to
Yeah.
say when we moved and we weren't right next to our family anymore, it was one of the blessings was that we got to invite anybody we wanted.
Kind of freed us up,
Yeah.
right? In
And
some
our,
ways.
our kids really grasped onto that, and they would come home with like lists of people they wanted to invite with the, for the
Still.
holidays. And it still happens. Like we have so many people, our kids are like, well, so-and-so's coming for the holidays. And sometimes they don't even tell us until that person shows up, which is kind of fun. And I think like even our daughter, when she was like living in Chicago, she chose not to come home a few like Thanksgivings because she
Several.
would do several because she would do Friendsgiving because she knew that there were so many people who did not have
Yeah.
a place, did not
Okay.
have a family.
So let me summarize a bunch of this. A lot of this, is preference. A lot of stuff is preference. We need to lay on the altar and go, God, I love doing this, and it's we've always done it, but what would you have us do so we can live as a family on mission?
Mhm.
Some of it is fear of man, like our perfectly clean house or our cooking skills or our kids aren't that behaved or whatever. And we can allow God to change that and work on that. And we can also believe that he is more glorious than any of these people. And he loves us perfectly, regardless of the dust bunnies or, our overcooked spaghetti or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. But we get to lay some of these things down for the eternal purpose of filling the world with God's glory as we make disciples of Jesus and help people move from unbelief to belief in every area of life. You hear us say this all the time and experience greater freedom. That's what Christ came. He says, "I'm just for freedom that I came to set you free," and relational peace that's real and deep and lasting. We want that for you. And so much of that's been broken out there, right? Our Western individualism, for most of us who are going to be hearing this today, watching this today, it's really damaged and limited our understanding and function of both family and therefore what the church really is. Remember, that's our big part of our identity. We get to redeem that. Okay. Leaders, I'm talking straight to you. We get to redeem that. We get to live as a model for the rest of our church, family. We do. We get to model families as the church to the rest of the world, what God always intended our families to be. And kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. We get to bring a little heaven to earth and invite people into it increasingly. So when you hear this talk today and you hear the life we're living with Team K and all that, just know it's not a light switch. It's not like, boop, we got to change it all. No, but little by little, will you allow God to use you, your kids, all the blessings he's poured into your home, your house, your talents, your experiences, your stuff. Will you allow him to use all that for his glory? I'm telling you, it is an adventure and it is a thrill ride that you will love. Okay. Will you offer all that stuff up to him? And will you invite other people in to your church, from your church to join you in it? Will you do that? Will you be a family worth imitating that way? I hope you will. All right. I want to tell you the rest of the Team K story. So lots of people over the years have become part of Team K. Okay, they feel like it. They are. We see them that way. They're, a lot of them are part of our own oikos, we would call it, our extended family of people we do life and mission with. Well, a few years ago, our oldest daughter, Kristen, so our second born, she married the love of her life. Okay, and he's great, and we love Daniel so much. And the entire ceremony and the reception was just this picture of the gospel. I mean, they arranged the whole thing, but he was discipled in life. And she grew up Team K, so I want to think she was discipled pretty well, but wasn't perfect. But anyway, and the whole reception and then the whole thing was a picture of the gospel. I got to do the ceremony from officiant, and preach the gospel. We all loved it. Okay, and during the time when everyone was giving their their official speeches, most of them very, very hilarious. It was my turn, as the father of the bride. I stood up, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to officially induct Daniel, her husband, our new son-in-law, into Team K. Okay. right? And what I did was I had new and improved Team K shirts printed up. Someone did me a logo where it looks like Superman logo, and it but it says Team K instead of a big S, right? And but it says Team K anyway. And so then what I did was, though, on the back of these shirts, I put Dillard Division. You know what I mean? His last name's Dillard, right? And so I had this bag and I had these shirts in there, and he's a big dude, right? So I pulled out like this extra large. He's all muscled up and tattooed, just like our son. And I said, "Listen, man, we really consider you part of the family, part of Team K." He's like, "I know." And I said, but right now, you're starting a new division. And I pull out the shirt, it's Team K. Everybody laughs. He loves it. We turn it around. It says Dillard Division. Oh man, cheering, everything's great. I said, and you're going to now be leading this new division, first new division, and I expect you to, do well with this and love people well and continue to grow this. And we pulled out a little French cut top, and it had for Kristen, and it had the small little logo, and it said Dillard Division on it, right? Everything's great. And I said, and we expect you, for the Dillard Division of Team K to grow and grow. And everybody's like, yay, like we, and I pulled out a little onesie in the back. I had a little baby onesie with that new Team K Dillard Division logo on it, right? And I said, but really grow. And I pulled out another one and then another one, and everybody was losing their mind, right?
Yeah.
And it was a blast. And, the room is filled with people that we know, believing and not yet believing, that are really, part of our extended life. Now, later that night, okay, a very dear friend of ours who was there at the wedding, she posted this, okay? She posted this, and it just was beautiful, but it really sums up everything we're talking about. So I'm already getting choked up, I'm gonna let Tina read what she posted because I'd never get through it. Okay.
And she posted this on Facebook, by the way.
Yeah.
So it says, went to a wedding tonight. A very beautiful woman married a very handsome man. There is now a Dillard division of Team K. As one additional member was added to Team K, I looked around the room and saw many people I know have been loved and included by every member of that team. There are hundreds of honorary members of Team K, and I am blessed beyond words and understanding about how thankful I am to be one of them. Love you all so, so very much. And thank you for including, encouraging, and caring for so many. I couldn't even think of anything better that I could ever hope to be said about our family.
No, God's family, right?
God's family.
Oh. Chokes me up every time,
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And guess what? That's 2 years ago. So it's grown and grown. And the Dillard division has grown. It really has.
Two.
Yeah, well, two like blood, but there's a swarm of people around them now, right?
People.
Could that be said of your family? Would you love it to be? It can be. Are you leading your family on mission, or is discipleship and mission something added in when you get around to it? Right? Do you live open so more and more people find a place at God's table and a seat at His family table? Right? Yeah. Do you have a marriage and family worth imitating? Would people know how to follow Jesus, walk with Him, make disciples, experience freedom and joy, raise their kids in light of the gospel by hanging out with you guys? We want that for you. It can really happen.
Did you hear me getting a little choked up there at that last bit, that story, about the Dillard division and then our friend's post, right? What that meant to her to be a part of Team K. Oh, wow. I mean, God is so good that is true of us in our family. That's all His grace. And I know He wants that for you too. He wants that for all of His family, to live in such a way that people would know Him and come to know Him and feel His love, right? And acceptance. Oh, that can so be true for you as well. I hope this has been encouraging. I'll bet it's challenging in some ways, and that's okay too, right? I hope you don't move on too quickly from the thoughts you're having, but you spend some time as a couple, as a family, thinking, praying about this. If you listen to this alone, would you share this with your spouse? And if you're listening to this and you don't have a spouse, or maybe your kids have grown and you're wondering how to do all that too, we'd love to help you with some of that. Get into the Facebook group again and post some of those questions. we want that none of this is exclusive to our story and exactly how it went, right? So please share this as a family. And then also, would you do me a favor and share the episode with other people you know that are trying to learn how to live on mission as a family, increasingly make discipleship a lifestyle? It's pretty easy to do, right? You can just, go to the Facebook group. You'll see the post, grab the link to that and share it in your Facebook group. Or you can come to our website, everydaydisciple.com, and go to the podcast section there. Any of these episodes, you can just go to the page, grab that URL up top, boom, and then share it in your Facebook group. It'll put a little picture there, everything. It's all super easy, right? Okay, before we go much further, I want to give you the big 3 takeaways from this episode, like we always do, kind of condense down a few things I don't want you to miss. And you can get these big 3 kind of written out for you in case you're at the gym or driving or whatever, don't feel like writing. I'll send it to you in a printable PDF. All you have to do is go to everydaydisciple.com/big3. BIG3, okay? And we'll send those to you, okay? So here's the first thing. Here's the first of the big 3. Your home is not your refuge. Jesus is. Oftentimes, we can start to hide out in our homes and become pretty isolated with others, and we kind of go to work and do all the things that are, quote, required or we have to or supposed to, and then we come home and isolate. We begin to think that our home is our safe place from others and stress and potential conflict. And we can set up unnecessary and maybe selfish boundaries that are really designed to meet our selfish needs. And we call them balance, right? Remember, Jesus is our refuge and the one we can find our identity, strength, and our wisdom for this journey and discipling from, okay? That's where we find it. Jesus, he's our refuge. Second, number 2, your fear of what others think about you may be keeping you from living as a family on mission and making disciples. And I just want you to hear this. God is the most glorious one in the universe, and he loves you completely. And he proved that at the cross. He gave his life for us, for you, for me. You are his dearly loved and perfectly loved son or daughter. Let that soak in a second. Yeah, you're dearly loved child of his. You don't have to fear what others think about your not-so-perfect home or your cooking or your kids or I'm tired after work or, any of it, right? It's his opinion of you that matters most, and he loves you. Believing that God loves us regardless of our missional performance, sort of quote-unquote, right? How we've been doing, how we feel about whatever. But believing he loves us regardless sets us free to trust him for who he wants us to bless and start to treat as part of our family. And number 3, this is sort of rubber meets the road stuff, and this is for serious disciple makers. So you're hearing this and you're moved by these last couple episodes. Make a list of everything that would keep you and your family from living an open-door lifestyle with others right now. Like really, be honest. You're not going to post this on the internet. Be honest. Make a list of everything that would keep you from living more like what we've been talking about in this episode. And then pray and ask God to show you if these barriers are things that he has placed in your life. Busyness, fear, shyness, schedule, lack of love. Probably not going to find that he did. Then ask him to replace these things with new, loving rhythms of openness and hope that would increasingly show others his love, acceptance, and freedom. Okay? And by the way, if you're interested in being in a coaching and mentorship relationship with Tina and I, we would love to do that. We'd love to teach you a lifestyle of discipleship and mission and how to be a family on mission. We really want you to start experiencing greater spiritual freedom and relational peace today. All right. You can find out all the information, get a hold of us by going to everydaydisciple.com/coaching. All right. I hope that all of this is helpful. I hope you've been super, super encouraged by it. And again, maybe a little challenged, I'll bet. All right. Hey, next week on the podcast, this episode will be out on Monday. I'm going to talk about how there is no should or shouldn't in the gospel. There's only we get to and we need not. And we're going to go deep into some of the things that we kind of place on ourselves and others that might actually not be good or grace-filled and aren't helping us live on mission and make disciples. I hope you'll join me for that. I hope you have a great week or weekend or whatever. Till then, I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information on this show and to get loads of free discipleship resources, visit everydaydisciple.com. And remember, you really can live with the spiritual freedom and relational peace that Jesus promised every day.